Hi, I'm J.C. Holman, and this is the Anarcha Archive. Today, I'm going to show you how I first found Anarcha, the young woman at the center of the creation myth of modern women's health.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Anarcha was experimented on by the surgeon J. Marion Sims, who went on to be known as the father of gynecology. Sims was a bad guy. His so-called cure of Anarcha became central to the career narrative he crafted in becoming one of the world's first celebrity surgeons. For many years, Sims was the only source on Anarcha. No one believed he was a good source, but for almost 2 centuries, the only evidence for Anarcha's existence came from him. Sims claimed that Anarcha had come from the Westcott plantation, and that's all anyone knew. And that's here, just a short ways from downtown Montgomery, Alabama. The records aren't exactly clear, but the best guess is that the Westcott plantation stood somewhere near here. The Westcotts had originally come from South Carolina. A man named David Westcott married a much younger woman, Eliza, and they moved from South Carolina to Alabama, a brand new state at the time, in about 1820. They started a plantation. David Westcott died, probably of an illness, in 1828. Like his father before him, he died intestate, without leaving a will. When I first came to Alabama to search for Anarcha, this was the first place I came, the Alabama Department of Archives and History. Or actually, this was the first place I came, the meeting house of the Montgomery County Historical Society, though it became clear very quickly that I needed to visit the Alabama Department of Archives and History. The archives had plenty of records from the Westcott plantation, which at one point took up a large chunk of the area that is now Montgomery. In the 1820s, the Westcott plantation was still small and growing. But the truth is, the archives were not the best place to go for the Westcott plantation records. That was here, the Montgomery County Archives. The Department of Archives and History have the records on microfilm, but the county archives have the actual records, and you can just request to examine them. They're public. Here, an archivist named Dallas Hanbury was very helpful in my search for Anarcha. What happened was that when David Westcott died intestate, his entire estate, everything he owned, had to be carefully inventoried so that his debts could be settled. At this time, the whole of the South was a debt economy. Everything was purchased on credit. You can learn a lot from looking at plantation inventories like these. The Westcotts owned a gold watch and a shotgun. They had about 25 cattle, 50 sheep, and a stock of hogs. They had tables and sideboards and glassware and cookware. They had 2 cotton gins. And of course, they enslaved people. At the time of his death, David Westcott was the enslaver of 29 people, several large families, several couples, and a handful of men and children listed individually. It was here that I first found Anarcha, or Anaka. In 1828, she's listed as the 4th of 5 children of a man named Jerry and his wife Sue. Their children are Manuel, Mary, Ben, Anaka, and Joe. About the name Anaka. The name Anarcha appears only in Sims' autobiography. The H was added to her name decades later by the secretary who transcribed Sims' story. It wasn't ever really her name. I'll detail that more in a future video. Anaka is the Anarcha from the Westcott plantation, and in our next video, we'll begin to see how that name evolves over time. The bottom line is that Anarcha and her family were valued at $1,500, which represented approximately 15% of the total value of the Westcott plantation. It's very likely that Anarcha's mother, Sue, was bearing children regularly, so as the 4th of 5 children, Anarcha was probably 1 or 2 years old in 1828. This matches perfectly with Sims' later claim about Anarcha's age. As I said, when I first went to Alabama, there was no evidence of Anarcha's life that did not come from Sims himself, and even Sims' defenders have acknowledged that he was a serial exaggerator. The 1828 Westcott Plantation inventory offers the first evidence ever found that proves beyond all doubt that Anarcha truly existed. In our next video, We'll look at another set of Westcott plantation documents from 1841, when Anarcha is 13 years older and her name has already begun to change.
Whoa, whoa,